Doki Doki is a Japanese onomatopoeia, and it's kind of the heartbeat sound. And universe is an English word, and it means universe. So Doki Doki Universe actually kind of means heartbeat universe, which is a perfect name for the game because in it you play as a robot who is trying to discover what humanity is. And so you fly around the universe on your little steed, which can be a parrot or like a snow leopard with wings or something. It's kind of up to you. And you fly around to these different planets, and on each planet there is a story being told. And each story is a different aspect of humanity, basically, according to the game. And you know this because your little buddy, the alien named Jeff, zips down at the beginning of each level, and he explains to you which aspect of humanity you're going to be learning about. So that is conveyed to the player by you walking around this planet and talking to the people who live there. They each have problems that you need to help them with. And that's the idea of the game here, is that you're just helping people. You're helping them solve their problems, you're helping them become happier. That's kind of amazing, because in 99% of video games, you are trying to harm other people for purely selfish reasons. I'm honestly having a hard time thinking of another game where you are trying to make people happy, besides maybe Scribblenauts, which is a game that's compared to this game a lot, and vice versa. So it's very refreshing to play this game, even though it has some problems with its basic structure. Because the way you help these people doesn't really change. What you're doing is talking to them, and they will explain something to you, and they will explain their problem. And you can solve that problem, but the ways you solve those problems basically boil down to either going and talking to someone else, doing a gesture with the right stick, or summoning something. And the way you summon something is you go to this menu and a bunch of little items pop out. Within this cloud of items is hopefully something that relates to something the person told you they wanted. So they'll be like, man, I really wish I had a pet. And then you open up all the bubbles and maybe there's a cat or a dog or something weirder like a scorpion or something. And it's kind of up to you to choose what you think would be the best pet. Sometimes it goes wrong, but most of the time it's very freeform. You can do whatever you want, and they're gonna be like, oh dude, this is the coolest pet ever. Thank you so much. And then they have a little meter that fills up, and it gets closer to the heart, because they love you now, because you made them a pet. And then, if you can get that meter all the way full, they'll give you a present, maybe. Or, maybe the present is at the other end of the spectrum, which is what leads to one of my favorite parts of the game, is you have to get them to not like you enough so that they'll give you a present to make you go away. So this kind of opens up this thing where you have to go look at, because you have this little info thing that'll tell you what they like and what they don't like if you've figured that stuff out by talking to them or other people. So to get them to not like you, you have to go in there and look at all the things they hate and then just start throwing stuff at them that they hate. And it's just hilarious because they're like, I really hate elderly people. So then you just start throwing elderly people at them. And they're like, oh my god, this is the worst. Just take this present. So that's all really cool. But that's kind of all you do the entire game. And it's incredibly charming, and it's well written, and it's funny, and it looks cool. It's got this really unique art style. But it's also hard to play this game for very long at a time because it's just not captivating in a gameplay sense. And that's kind of hard to deal with because I think it's a really cool game, but it doesn't have legs really. But what it does have is an entirely different section where as you're, discovering what humanity is, you also have these little asteroids. And on the asteroids are little, monks. And they do psychological tests on you. And these are really, really cool because they are just vague enough and just strange enough that you feel like they actually are getting a picture of what your psyche is, even though it's totally, it's not like an actual psychological evaluation. But it's they'll have 3 pictures of penguins, and one will have a jetpack, and one will have goggles on or something. And it'll be like, hey, which penguin is the leader? And that's it. And you just have to pick which of the penguins is the leader. And then it'll be, oh, you picked that one, huh? Well, that means you're very generous. And it's really, there's like a ton of these. There's like probably hundreds of these questions. And after you do enough of them, you can go to this doctor, psychiatrist man, and he will actually give you a more in-depth picture of what the game thinks your psychological profile is. So it'll be like, you're 67% left brain, and here's where you stand on a scale from, humble to courageous or whatever. None of it feels true, really, because it's all being taken from these very vague questions. But it's super interesting to go through, and you kind of get into that thing where you're like, yeah, I can see it. Like, it could tell you anything, and you'd be like, yeah, I think that's right. If you want to talk about games that haven't done this, I don't think there's another game out there that'll, like, psychologically analyze you through the course of the entire game. The only bummer with the whole thing is a lot of the questions are kind of, you have to go buy them. Like, it's DLC. There's tons and tons of them that are with the game, but it's kind of a bummer to see all these locked little asteroids that you can't get to because you have to go buy more questions. It's a bummer. But I still recommend the game wholeheartedly. It has so much more character to it than most games. I think the best way to play it would be to just kind of play it a little bit every day. Just like 10 or 15 minutes, and you'd get what you need out of it. And it's just fun to see all the little stories going on all these planets. Like, the one where you learn about jealousy is on this, like, African-themed planet, and a little leprechaun man turned a man into a lion, and you have to help him turn him back, and it's all this stuff, and you have to make a new family for this man. And it's really weird, because you just, like, he wants a daughter, so you just summon this little white girl, and she's like, I'm your daughter, and then he's like, I'm gonna name you daughter, and then they're happy, they're a family. And it's really weird. It's worth seeing, absolutely.